There are definitely some things that I need to work quite hard on. I've noticed that I really have to focus on correct usage of prepositions and articles. I think that's currently my biggest problem I'm facing, and something that I just have to learn. Since I am somewhat using English instinctively, um, which is fine, I guess, as long as it's not for some sort of official purpose. The moment I need to actually use proper language, proper grammar, uh, I can't be doing that. I think I've read enough. I think I've listened enough to be able to hold a decent enough conversation to write something that's at least readable or even semi-grammatically correct, but there will always be mistakes, and these two things are definitely on the top of my list of what I need to focus on. There is another issue that I have with English, and that's me trying to translate word for word from my own language. Um, some phrases, some idioms that seem perfectly logical, some uses of tenses that would be absolutely okay in my language, and I mean grammatically correct, are just impossible to use in English. So that's another thing that I just have to learn. That not that's not something that I can guess. I would say, because, for example, double negatives in my language, they are common. They are very much grammatically correct. They are consistent with uh, the rules of my language. On the other hand, in English, um, and that's something that I didn't know before I started diving a bit deeper into English, they are not always just 100% incorrect as we were taught um, in school, but they significantly change the meaning of the sentence in some cases, and that's very confusing for me. So whenever I get to talk about something and it would sound logical to me to use a double negative like that, I have to always remind myself, hey, this is English. This is different. And I'll need to keep working on that definitely in the future, because I don't want to sound straight up stupid. Um, I don't like when someone talks to me in my own language and it's just full of swear words, simple sentences, nothing that would develop the conversation. I just, there is something, maybe it makes me sound like a poser, but it's not something that I would like to present myself as. So, as I've mentioned, I would just like to wor- work my way into being able to talk in an eloquent manner, um, naturally, without thinking about it, without having to consider myself, consider my words, and the way I construct the sentences, the way I move along with the conversation. I would like to be able to do that. So I hopefully doing this, recording myself, listening to my own voice and the way I talk will help me with that. I wanted to mention a little bit about something that came to my mind during the last ones, one of the last videos I've made about modern games and being unable to actually enjoy them. Uh, I've mentioned Mass Effect as an exception to this, even though it's a decade-old game already. The last one is decade old. The first one is even older. Another exception would be Witcher 3, but as I thought about it, I've played the game, the entire game, with DLCs twice, which is 150, 200 hours per one playthrough. And even though I enjoyed myself quite a lot, I don't think that I'll be replaying that game anytime soon. On the other hand, I've already replayed the entire Mass Effect saga. Well, the first three games. That's the entire saga there is to me. Uh, I've already replayed that quite a few times, and I think I would be more than willing to do so right now. On even though I'm right in the middle of a playthrough of Neverwinter Nights, I would still rather enjoy that. So even though Witcher 3 is the newest game that left a deep impression on me, it still wasn't particularly important to me, even though it's a great game, and that's a game that's made in 2014. Nothing past that was able to draw me in so hard as games that came out 20 years ago. So that was just something I wanted to mention. And now in my current playthrough, I have finished for the first time, I think in my life, the first DLC, which is the Shadows of Undertide. I think the reason why I've never really played it before, I played the enhanced edition, was that it was impossible to import a character that I've finished the original campaign with. So I've always skipped the first DLC and started with Horse of the Underdark. The moment I played that DLC for the first time and in the subsequent playthroughs. So this time um, I was ready to uh, try and handle, even if it was impossible to import my character, but it was okay, it was smooth. So I tried that for the first time, and I think it will be my last time playing that DLC. It wasn't something that would actually impress me or something that would um, leave a mark on my gaming uh, experience. So I don't know exactly what the problems were, what the reasons were. I have some guesses. The characters weren't exactly something that I would grow fond of. Uh, the character that you are supposed to care about, your master, teacher, uh, Drognan, he wasn't someone who would evoke any sort of feelings from me. I did not care that he got injured, that he was poisoned. I did not really learn anything about him as a character, even though he was supposed to be someone extremely important for the player character. He was his master, spent years as an apprentice of him, and yet his character was just simply underdeveloped. I think the DLC would really benefit from having a prologue where we would do just some simple tasks and learn a bit about our supposed master, because the way we were just thrust into it and we had pretty much no connection to him or the other apprentices, I think made me less interested into the story. Um, then the other part would probably be the writing was a bit simpler, I guess, more childish, less developed. The conversations felt weird compared to the original campaign, and maybe I'm just looking at the campaign through some weird rose tinted glasses, but I've just played through it and I've read everything, all the text, all the small journals, miscellaneous texts, conversations. I've read them multiple times and I still did it again. And I still enjoyed reading them. Maybe the writing team changed, maybe there was just someone else taking care of these of the story of the. I'm guessing there was, but it just felt different. So just a quick rundown. Definitely won't be as long as the original campaign. Um, First thing first, our master gets poisoned by some kobolds and some artifacts get stolen. We are tasked with retrieving them as our final task before we graduate from this sort of academy the master Ragnan is running in this village. We get some side quests, some less interesting ones, some quite deep. So I'm not saying that the DLC is all bad. There are interesting game mechanics. It's clear that the developers pushed the engine way further than the original campaign, so that was interesting. Some quests, for example, an elf was looking for a cure for his ill wife, and the only way to get that cure was to kill a very rare animal, gentle animal. So it was a dilemma for him, especially since he was a ranger, an arcane archer, someone who's close to nature, and still we were tasked with finding that animal and then either deciding to warn it that it's being hunted so that it can run away, or kill it and save the man's wife's life. So it wasn't empty at all, just that it didn't feel as interesting, as compelling, or so close to me as some of the characters of the original campaign and their quests. Once we get the artifacts, we find out who was after them, at least partially. Then we have to try and identify part of one of these artifacts. We have to take it to some archaeologist. We find out that actually it's some powerful artifact that some evil Medusa is trying to find and use to revive her long lost empire. So the last part is us being turned into stone and being rescued by a slaver and forced to clear out some guardian golems inside of a now flying city of an empire that existed millennia ago. It's not bad. The story is a bit tedious. The locations felt empty in terms of story and character. Even of the locations, they were nice visually, but somehow nothing came out of that. And there were a lot of enemies, so many enemies, and it just felt like a chore trying to get through that. So I can't say that I hate it, but it barely qualifies for me to talk about this DLC on this channel, since I really wanted to just talk about things that I like so much that they have left an impression on me, and this was just something I don't mind. I don't regret playing through this, but I don't think I'm ever going to do it again. So next time it will be Hordes of the Underdark, which is something that I love very much, very deeply, and hopefully it will be a shorter video. I'm getting quite unchained with these, so I'll have to try and curb myself a little bit.